I am here with Tia Cummings. So, welcome, Tia. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Absolutely. So, normally, my first question is to tell me a little bit about your career path. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about your career path because I think it's amazing. You've had a really cool career path. So, I know you went to Hampton University for your undergraduate degree and then ended up at Purdue for graduate school to get your MBA. But you worked as a summer associate, I guess, during school, both at Procter and Gamble and at Kraft Foods, and then I think even Pratt and Whitney as well.
That was after business
Oh,
school.
after business school. Those are some pretty good companies to start out. Getting your feet wet, I guess, a little bit. But so then, I guess you went to work for Johnson and Johnson, Pinnacle Foods, L'Oreal, and then almost 5 years at Kellogg's. And then you went to work for IHG for almost 3 years. And then finally, made the leap, I guess, to Walker and Company about a year and a half ago. So just tell us quickly about that progression and what your goals were that led you on that path. And then also want to talk just a little bit about Walker and Company. What does Walker and Company do and what do you do for them?
Awesome. Yeah. It's funny. I've had a very interesting journey. It's been a winding path. I didn't necessarily intend for it to be that way, but I started off, I was a chemical engineering major, right? So when I had that internship at P&G during school, and then after graduated and I did a co-op at Kraft Foods, that was as an engineer
Hmm.
doing
Of
research.
course, of course.
Right. But it was actually during that first internship at P&G that I even discovered what marketing was. I had my heart set on doing the technical path. My father is a scientist, so that's what I was going to be. And then discovered marketing and was really intrigued. So I came back my senior year of college, like, well, I'm about to graduate with an engineering degree, but I think I want to go work in marketing. So that's why I knew I was going to go to business school. So I applied to business school my senior year, which is very non-traditional. I just wanted to go straight through. I was lucky enough to get into a few schools. I went to Purdue, right? So I spent the summer before business school doing another engineering type role, and then went to business school so that I could, learn about marketing and make this transition. Um,
Hey, how did your parents feel about that? If your father was a
yeah,
scientist, was he happy with marketing or?
he was a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie, because he has his PhD and he thought I was going to do that. And then when I said no, I would go to medical school. I said no again. So now today he couldn't be happier and couldn't be more proud. But back then he was definitely a little bit bummed that I wasn't going to follow in his footsteps. Um, yeah, so in business school I did my MBA internship at Johnson and Johnson. I was all set to start off as an ABM when I graduated, and then got sort of diverted away by United Technologies Corporation. They really wooed me to participate in their general management rotational program at Pratt and Whitney, which is not CPG. For those who don't
Mhm,
know, Pratt and Whitney makes aircraft engines, both commercial and military. So it
mhm.
could not be farther from CPG brand marketing. But I was really intrigued by the whole idea of a development program because, as I said, I went straight through from undergrad to grad, which most people don't. They get work experience
Right.
first. And all I had were my 3 internships. And so I thought it would be good to try something else just to really validate that marketing is what I want to do. So I did that for 3 years, great experiences, learned a lot, and it just sort of reinforced, no, my heart is in brand marketing. And so I went right back to J&J, right, where I interned some years earlier. Um, I've been really fortunate to work on big brands, small brands, but all at really great companies, right? So I spent 3.5 years at J&J. I went to Pinnacle Foods. So left from, I worked on some of the healthcare, the consumer healthcare brands at J&J. So Breach toothbrushes, Stay Free pads. And then I moved to food at Pinnacle. Then I moved to beauty at L'Oreal. Then went back to food at Kellogg's. And then at that point, I'd spent a decade in CPG. And I said, you know what, whether it's food or beauty or personal care, it's all kind of the same. Let me branch out to another consumer industry. I love to travel. You know what? I'm going to set my sights on either hotels or airlines because I want to try, marketing in hospitality. And so I ended up at IHG. And it was a great experience, very different when you are now basically marketing an experience, is what I'll say, right? Because we don't own our hotels. It's a franchise business, just
Right.
like McDonald's. So you're really trying to just market the name and the experience that you'll get at our hotel. So that was great. And then I had a really unique opportunity present itself at Walker and Company.
So tell us about Walker and Company and what it is and what your focus and role is there now.
Yeah, so Walker and Company is a health and beauty startup founded by Tristan Walker in 2013 to make health and beauty products for people of color. He started off with the brand Bevel, which is a grooming line that was
Mhm.
designed for Black men for their unique hair and skin issues. They were acquired by Procter and Gamble in December of 2018, and they approached me in June of 2019 as they were preparing to relocate their headquarters from Silicon Valley to Atlanta. And they were looking for a marketing leader to come in and sort of build their marketing capability. And it was intriguing because I'd always worked at these really big companies, as you just heard. I'd never been in a startup type environment. I'd never really worked on a multicultural brand, right? I worked on American icons like
Yeah.
Holiday Inn and Pop Tarts, And
Right.
so to go like work for something that is, very targeted to my community, that is still growing and establishing itself and being able to sort of help do that was really intriguing.
Hmm.
Still, it was a tough decision to leave IHG. It was very tough because I was really enjoying my time there. But I felt like this was one of those once in a lifetime opportunities that come along. And again, something I hadn't done. So that's really one of the things that I try to look for when I make moves. Like, is this something that is going to be new? Is it going to grow and develop and challenge me and sort of further build out my marketing tool set? So that's kind of how I make decisions and why I'm very choiceful about the moves I make to ensure that it checks off those boxes. So
Yep.
at Walker, I'm responsible for not just marketing, advertising, but consumer insights, innovation, and consumer experience.
It's funny because I think about those choiceful decisions are maybe ones that an engineer would make. So you still have a little bit of that engineer background
Oh
in
yeah.
your DNA.
Oh yeah, that analytical mindset does not go away. I'm very much still an engineer at heart, and I frankly think it makes me a better marketer.
Oh yeah, big time. Well, particularly nowadays with marketing becoming more data driven than it ever has been before, I think those skills are really useful for a marketer.
Absolutely.
So I'm you have an interesting career progression, and also it's interesting that you're at a company now where you still talk about it as very much of a startup, but it's also owned by one of the largest CPG companies in the whole world. So that's an interesting dynamic. So talk about the dynamic of being a startup, but being one that's part of a, global behemoth in terms of
Yeah.
CPG.
The beauty of the relationship is we get to benefit from a lot of the scale that P&G has. So for example, by showing up at retailers as part of the P&G sales team, right? So we're not trying to go into Target and Walmart by ourselves where we
Mm.
might get lost, but we show up as part of P&G. Hey, we're going to get attention there.
Yeah.
Similarly, right, P&G has world-class product development facilities, right? Their R&D for products and beauty specifically is top-notch. So we get to leverage those resources as well. But we still get to hold on to our identity and who we are as a startup, right? Tristan is still our CEO,
Hmm.
right? And so there's a lot of things that I don't have to deal with in terms of the big bureaucracy of P&G, right? Like we can still be nimble. Our creative, everything that we do comes from us, right?
Hmm.
It was approved by Tristan. So it's kind of the best of both
Yeah,
worlds,
that's
right?
amazing.
It's where we get to benefit from the access to the tools and the research and scale of P&G, but we still get to stay true to who we are as a brand. And we get to move fast and do things that we know our community is looking for. So it's been really, really cool, actually.
That's amazing. So what's a piece of advice that you maybe wish you'd gotten early in your career or you maybe would give to somebody who's much younger in their career?
Oh, wow. There's so many things. There's so many things. You know, I think the piece of advice I would give to someone younger, and it's because it's something that I've done and I didn't even realize it, but don't be afraid to take a chance, take risk, right? I've moved around, I bounced around. Even when I was in a really great place, I wasn't afraid to take a leap to someplace else. And I tell people all the time, don't get comfortable, right? To me, that's the worst thing is when you sort of get complacent and you kind of let yourself stagnate in one place for too long. Constantly challenge yourself and view your career progression as a marathon, right? Not a sprint. And just try to enjoy the ride. So that's the biggest piece of advice I give to a lot of young people, especially a lot of young people interested in careers in marketing. And I'm like, you know what? Really take the time to understand what is it you're most passionate about. Try new things. Don't be afraid to take a leap. The worst that could happen is didn't really like it here, so I'm going to go someplace else.
Yeah,
So that's my feedback.
that's great. So what would you say is your superpower?
Oh yeah, this is easy. My superpower is really coming in to an organization and building amazing relationships and inspiring teams to get big things done.
Hmm.
100%. Every place I've gone, um, and the main piece of feedback that I get as a leader is it's really amazing how you're able to build these teams and inspire them to accomplish great things. Right? It could have been teams who were not performing as well before, and you're able to turn it around. Or it could just be you've just brought in this new energy, and you've really built the culture, and all of a sudden people are inspired to do great work. That's my superpower.
That's great.
It is, and it's a great one to have because like you can't do anything by yourself. And I'm wise enough to know that I've been successful, and all of my successes are due to having really strong teams behind me.
That's great. Well, being able to build those relationships and inspire teams is not something that everybody does well. So that is a superpower. So we're in the hopefully the final stages of a global pandemic. Vaccines are widely being distributed now, and we all kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel. But other than the pandemic, what has been the biggest challenge that you're facing as a marketer?
Mm. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I've been facing is it's related to the pandemic, right? Because as a young brand, one of the big cornerstones of my marketing plan last year was all about, hey, we need to be out in the communities where our
Mm,
consumer is and meeting them. And so my marketing plan was a huge focus on it was experiential and just being out and about. And because that's again, when you're a new brand and you want to talk to people,
yeah.
it's great if they can experience it, if they can talk to
Mhm.
it, they can touch and feel the product versus just see an ad. And I had to scrap all of that,
Yeah.
right? And how do you engage with consumers, when they're stuck at home? How do you engage with consumers, and particularly our audience, which is the Black American, who is struggling economically because of COVID, right? Who is struggling with the fight for racial justice, which took on
Yeah.
a huge role last year, right? They've got all of these things that they're dealing with. Me trying to sell them my shampoo just feels
Right. Right.
right unimportant. And so
Right.
for me, the biggest challenge is how do I find a way to make my brand relevant and
Mhm.
to add value to their lives, knowing all of these things that they're dealing with. And so that has been the biggest challenge for the past year. I think we've been really successful at finding unique ways to do that, that have helped, give the brand a reason for being beyond just selling really great personal care products.
Mhm. That so that leads me to a question that I would like to ask you, but I'm going to change it a little. The question is, where do you find your inspiration? But then I'll also want to ask it in the context of not just Tia's personal inspiration, but also, is there a brand that you're looking to for aspiration? Because you just said, how do we make our personal care products relevant in the context of, social justice movement and other big things happening in our country? Is there a brand that's doing that well, in your opinion, that you kind of look to as an aspirational brand?
What's funny, and this was not planned and this isn't scripted, but the irony is P&G has been really strong in that
Mm,
space for years,
Yeah.
right? Well before Bevel came to the table, but you go back years and years, they were putting out ads like the talk, right? Which is the conversation Black parents have to have
Yeah.
with children to be careful, right? The look, right? They have been doing this for years. And so I've always been inspired by them. Didn't expect to come work, under in a division of theirs, but still, like they're one who's doing it right. But I don't think it just has to be about like, social justice. There are
Right.
brands
Right.
that
Right.
do a really good job of tying, being a good business and doing good in the world, right? You think about like brands like Tom's or Bombas, right? Where when you buy socks,
Or,
they donate a pair of
or
socks.
Patagonia,
Exactly.
yeah, or Ben and Jerry's does an
Oh,
amazing job. Yeah.
that's a really good one. I should have said Ben and Jerry's. I have my freezer right now. I love it.
Right.
And you know what? The reason I even started buying Ben and Jerry's, I never bought the brand. I literally saw an ad years ago where they were talking about Black Lives Matter when it first came out. So probably almost 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, a company is actually saying that, but I'm
Right.
going to buy some of their ice cream. And I've been a loyal consumer ever since.
And they're also owned by a massive conglomerate, and they still are able to
So,
have the message that they really think is important, despite, it not always being, a mainstream
or
perspective.
popular. And those are the brands that I really respect.
Yeah.
And that is what I wanted Bevel to be, right?
Yeah.
To take a stand, to do things that make a difference. And like I said, I'm fortunate we were able to do some really big things last year to support that, right? We did a partnership with Headspace, the mindfulness app,
Yeah.
because we were reading about how the mental health of Black Americans is suffering, right? COVID is beating them down, they're losing their job, George Floyd, and their mental health is at an all-time low and no one's getting help for it. It was a New York Times article.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to my team, I was like, we should do something about this. And that's what I said, right? And so we went and we started trying to find a partner. Who can we work with? Who wants to do something? Headspace was like, we would love to support. So we were able to give free subscriptions to Headspace. No strings attached. No, you don't have to buy anything. No, don't give us your email address. We're not going to market to you later. Here's a link. Anyone who wants to use this, just go, right?
Wow.
Because we know you're struggling. We got so much, positive press and a positive response just from consumers. Like, wow, a brand that just wants to help. I didn't have to do anything for this. Like they literally just posted it and said, hey, anyone who needs help, use this.
That's awesome.
It was great, right? And it felt good. And oh, by the way, the amount of press and attention we got. And
Yeah, you probably sold product too.
We did sell product. We had our best quarter in brand's history, right? Because we were doing all of these things for the good of our community, and people like that.
Well, and so that maybe in a nutshell says the difference between now being VP of marketing and reporting directly to the CEO of the company and being able to have at least a little bit of the clout and leeway to be able to try some interesting things. And they don't always succeed, I'm sure, when you try something. I mean, I don't know if you can talk about a time where you tried something that went really, really well. Obviously, the Headspace relationship did, and then maybe even something that didn't go so well. But I guess having that leeway is different probably for you at this point.
It is, and it's actually kind of the beauty of a smaller company. I mentioned, right? I don't have all the bureaucracy. It's like, hey guys, we should do something, and I can go to my boss like, hey, I think we should do this, and it's like, okay, when you are the lead person, right? There is no marketer above me. My boss is just going to say, well, you're the marketer. Like, yeah, whatever you think we should do. And so, yes, there are things that don't always work out as well, right? Like we've tried to do some celebrity influencer partnerships, thinking that, hey, this is going to get us a bunch of eyeballs and it's really going to have an impact and make people want to try the brand. Not so much, right? So I think what we're learning is that when we're just being authentic to who we are, we're not trying to put some big name and appear all super sexy, but it's like, no, we're here to solve problems and to help make your life better, and that exists through the products that we have for you that are designed specifically for you. It's through initiatives like Headspace and some of the other social good things we do. That stuff seems to work better for us.
That's great. Yeah. So what are the values that you like to demonstrate as a leader, or maybe even that you look for in leadership from others that you work with?
Yeah, the number one is servant leadership.
Mm.
And it is a model that I subscribe to. I truly view my role as an enabler to help my team be the best, right? How can I help break down any barriers? How can I help support you? That's what it's about, right? I want to remove myself out of the way so that you guys can really shine.
Hmm.
And that, again, has contributed to my success. It's why people love working for me, why people are motivated when they feel like, hey, my leader is here to help me do my best work and is enabling me to do that, right? They're supporting me as a whole individual, right? And that's
Absolutely.
what I do. I encourage people to bring their whole selves in. And I've learned this from other leaders, right? And that's how I pick that up. So that's my number one thing. And everything I do as a leader is all about how can I help my team be better? How am I available to them? And I hate micromanagers. So no, my job is not to dictate what we should do. It's to question and to, inspire and motivate, and every now and then share some ideas.
Hmm.
Maybe they're good, maybe they're not. Um, that's to me, that's the best thing that a leader can do, right? Is get out of the way of your team and just support them.
Absolutely. So I'm going to shift gears for a minute. Set up my company. We're marketing matchmakers, and that often means that we connect brands and marketing agencies together. We sort of live in that space between marketing agency and brand. And so I'm curious, how you work with marketing agencies, or maybe even have worked with them throughout your career.
Yeah. I love a good agency relationship. I've been fortunate enough to have some amazing ones. To me, the best relationships are where I don't really view them as a separate entity. I treat them as just an extension of my team.
Hmm.
And that means sharing all the information. I want them to be just as invested in how the business is performing, good or bad, and what's going on with competition and the landscape, so that they have that full picture. Because to me, that's when they deliver the best work. The other thing is, I don't view it as okay, here's a brief agency, now go and come back with something. Everything's a collaboration, right? Even writing the brief is a collaboration,
Yeah.
right? Because again, that's how you get the best work. I don't think briefs that are written sort of in private and then sort of revealed, voila, here it is the way to go. Nope. Everything collaboration and moving in lockstep. That's how I've delivered some of the strongest work in my career. That's how
Hmm.
I've, been able to win awards. And I think it's because you treat the agency as a partnership, as an extension of your
Hmm.
team, not a separate entity. And that's where I've made great friends with a lot of my agency partners
Hmm.
over the years, who I'm still in touch with today, years and
Hmm.
years after we've worked together.
Well, I think when you're positioned like that with them, you have shared goals versus separate goals.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what are, in terms of when it's time to select a new agency, what traits are most important? What things are you looking for in that agency that help you know that they're the one?
It so depends, and I've done, agency reviews and RFPs in quite a few of the places I've worked. And so what I've been looking for differed based off of where that brand was at that time or what that brand needed, right? It could be, hey, now I'm working on this multicultural brand. It's really important for me to work with agencies that are multicultural and that truly
Yeah.
understand the Black consumer, right? That's one of the number one things. Wasn't looking for that before, but it's really important to me now. Um, as a smaller brand that's growing, I'm looking for agencies that have experience, with young brands and helping them grow.
Hmm.
Do you have, if it's a media agency, do you have performance marketing capability, right? Like you're really strong at figuring out how to move people down the funnel.
Hmm.
You know how to help drive awareness for a young brand when I don't have a huge budget, to
Right.
do national TV. So it's asking those types of questions. From creative agencies, I love to understand, how do you like to work? Because as we all know, sometimes creatives can have a certain demeanor and attitude, and I can't work well with those, right? Again, because I've already said I like everything to be a collaboration, right? And so I need to know, are you going to be able to take feedback? Are you really going to take the time to understand our consumer as well as possible and to understand our needs and work to get to the best possible creative? Or are you going to be one of those like, this is my vision and this is what it is? Because that's just not going to work for me,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So, what are some of the disciplines that you always want to outsource to agency to support? And what are some of the things that you absolutely would never outsource and you feel like you need to really own in-house?
It's so funny because in my current role, I would have said before I outsourced a lot of things to agencies. In my current role, I don't have that luxury because I don't have the budget to afford
Right.
of agencies. So we're doing things in-house that I've never done in-house.
Mm,
Our current brand campaign, I came up with that idea.
wow.
We paid an agency to shoot it and produce it,
Yeah.
but I came up with the concept. I've never come up with a creative concept in my life. I never wanted to be a creative, to be clear.
Right.
I'm not. That's not
But
me.
you've become one by
But I've
default.
become
Yeah.
one because I have to, which is again, it just speaks to when you put yourself in these new situations, it challenges you and forces you to do things. So honestly, at this point, I can't say that there's anything that I wouldn't bring in house or anything that I have
Yeah.
to absolutely outsource it because I think it just depends on if you have the right people and the right talent. And there's so many ways to get that in house now, right? There's so many organizations that will allow you to bring things in house. I can't say that there's something that has to be done by an agency or something that has to be done in house.
Amazing. So, how do you show the value of marketing to the non-marketing functions and disciplines within the organization? You know, CFOs and people like that don't necessarily live and breathe marketing. How do you show the value of marketing to the non-marketers?
Again, I've been lucky that I haven't had to deal with that a lot. Definitely not in my current role. Everyone knows marketing is critical when you're trying to grow
Mm-hmm.
a brand and grow a business. But what I have found, the most compelling thing you can do is just to show the data, right? I think people often think of marketing, especially if you are not a marketer, right? You think of it as just this fuzzy thing, right? And it's artsy, and they don't realize that there's a lot of science and analytics and math behind it. And as an engineer, I love that kind of stuff,
I was
right?
like,
So
especially from somebody that came from an engineering background, you
exactly.
apply that to it, whether
I
there's
apply
the
that to that, right? And I make everything, and it's an experiment, it's a test and learn. Here's what we're measuring. I'm going to report back on the measurement so you can see the impact. To me, that's how you win people over is with data,
Mhm.
right? And I'm a big proponent of, hey, where's the data? How are we measuring this? How can we show the impact? Whether it's good or bad, right? The data could be bad, it didn't work. That's fine. At least we learned something. And so then you're less likely to push back as I continue to test and learn because you're seeing either the value or you're seeing where we're learning, where we're improving, and we're getting better.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing you can do.
Is there a particular campaign that stands out to you in your mind, either at Walker and Company or a previous gig, that you're either really proud of or that you really learned a lot from, good or bad?
Oh, so many. I'm trying to think of which one I haven't. I'm obviously really proud of the one that we launched at Walker over the holidays because, again, I came up with the concept
Yeah.
and it's beautiful and it's relevant to our target consumer and unique and unlike anything out there. I'm really proud of the global campaign that I launched at IHG before I left. It was my first time doing a global campaign.
Hmm.
It was launching, around the world, China, UK, the Middle East. That was really awesome. How do you come up with a concept that is inclusive enough that it can live in all of these different parts of the world that have very different, mindsets and consumers, but that still is true to the one brand identity of Holiday Inn and Holiday Inn Express. So I'm really proud of that work. Um, I'm proud of the work that I did on Pop Tarts, right? That was the first time I won an award. I won an Effie Award for this music content campaign that we launched to help support some new products and innovation, right? Really taking an innovative approach to bringing in music, celeb talent, content, and events to produce this whole summer-long series. And it won an award. I'm really proud of that work, right? Because it was based on a lot of foundational research to truly understand the target consumer of Pop Tarts. So I've got
who is
lots of
the who is the target consumer of Pop Tarts generally?
teenagers, 12 to
Teenagers.
17, and young adults, 18 to 24.
Okay.
It's an
Okay.
addition that I added. It was originally just the teens.
Yeah.
I expanded it after doing some
It I, it is a college staple, I'll have to say as
It
well.
is. It is. So yeah, I'm fortunate. I've been able to do some really amazing things. I'm really proud of some of the things that I've been able to launch that have had meaningful business impact that I can
Mhm.
do.
Cool. All right. So I have some fun questions for you that are sort of rapid fire questions. The first is there a quote or a movie or a band or a book that really inspires you?
Oh man. There's lots. You may laugh at this. A movie. Okay, so I'm a big Marvel. I'm one of those, Comic Con, Dragon Con.
Yeah.
Love that kind of stuff. Love dressing up. Love all that world. Love Marvel. Love the Avengers. Love an Endgame and that ends fight scene. And there's the line where it's you hear him say on your left to Captain America, and that's when the holes start open and everyone who disappeared in the sorry if you have to but everyone who disappeared in the blip comes back. And it's just this epic scene of like this team coming together to defeat, Thanos, the evil villain. But what I love about it is just this strong team dynamic, right? And the emotion that is felt even amongst these superheroes, that they are a family that come together. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but I love people who work together, collaboration, and really becoming family with people you work with. I think there's a lot of similar themes to how I approach my work life. So that's one that I love that inspires me.
I love it. Well, one of my questions was, is there a fictional story or realm that you'd like to live in? But you maybe already answered that, right?
Wakanda,
Oh,
Black
okay.
Panther, Marvel,
Wakanda
again.
forever. There you
Like I
go.
said, I'm such a huge, yeah, Wakanda forever. I mean, just again, and this could also be the engineering, but Shuri and the scientific advances that they've got in that society, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was an easy one.
Nice. So is there a brand that you really admire that you've never worked on that you just have always admired? We talked a little bit about some from
Yeah.
a professional standpoint, but I'm just curious if there's like a personal brand that you really love.
Yeah, it's probably some of the same ones I mentioned, right? Like I mentioned the Bombas, the Toms. You brought up Ben and Jerry's, which is another one. It's I'm giving this example. I haven't worked on it, but it is a P&G brand. But like the My Black is Beautiful brand, um, taking that whole theme and turning it into this long-standing. I don't even know how long that thing has been around now, but turning that into a really strong, resonating message for Black women.
Hmm.
Similarly, in that vein, Dove, Real Beauty, right? I just love these types of authentic messages that are really
Hmm.
hammering home on issues. I hate to keep giving P&G examples, but they're just really good at this. And
Hmm.
I used to hate so always Cads because they were my mortal enemy when I worked on stuff. Like they're the number one brand, and we were always two or three. But my God, like things like the Like a Girl, the
Yeah,
messaging that was
oh,
just
that's really good.
so powerful, and they just do everything right. When you look
Hmm.
at brands that do everything right, from not just the product itself and the packaging, the offering, but they've really nailed in on their brand positioning and their brand purpose, and their messaging is just spot on.
Yeah.
Those are the brands that I really, really connect to, even as a consumer, right? Yes, my marketing hat is always going to be on.
Right.
That was really good. But as a consumer, it resonates and it hits home.
You're definitely a little skewed, Tia, though. We as marketers still always look at things through a marketing lens and
Too.
we admire the marketing, so we buy the product. I'm wearing a pair of shoes that I saw on an Instagram feed, an ad. They were really clever, really smart. They remarketed to me, and then I bought the product, and I admire the job that they did to lure me in.
Yes, and I do the same thing. Whenever I buy from one of those Instagram or Facebook, I'm like, gosh darn it, you did a good job following me
Yep.
around until I made this purchase.
Yep. 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 So, okay, I've got two more questions. The first is, where do you find joy outside of work? Do you have things that give you great joy?
Yes. Well, I mentioned like Marvel
Mhm.
and comic stuff. Definitely gives me great joy. I'm getting married this year.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. So spending time with my fiance, planning our wedding and our future
Mhm.
brings me a lot of joy. And then just spending time with like my family and friends. I love to travel with them, and just whether it's getting together for dinner. Again, COVID has kind
I
of
was gonna say,
ruined all that.
used to like to travel with them and
Used
will
to
in the
love to
future.
travel and go to dinner with friends, but I definitely, as soon as I got my first vaccine shot, as soon as I get my second one, I'll feel a little more comfortable being around my parents and everyone more often again. So I'm looking forward to that, because just being surrounded by people I love, and I'm fortunate to have a lot of those people, brings me a ton of joy.
That's great. So my final question is just, What's the question that you wish that I had asked you today?
Oh, wow.
That's a doozy, huh?
That is a doozy. Because you asked some really great ones. Yeah, you even asked about like the advice you would give, because that's always one that I love to share. Um, here's an interesting one. I'm going to give you this question. I don't even know if I have a good answer, but like the question of, if you weren't doing marketing, what would you
Hmm.
be doing?
Well, yours is easy. You'd just be an engineer, right?
No,
Or a
actually,
doctor.
definitely not a doctor.
Okay.
Fortunately, my little sister went to medical school, so she's the doctor in the family.
Oh,
My dad still got his doctor, so we're good.
right.
No, honestly, I am really passionate about community service and volunteer, and I'm involved with a large amount of organizations, probably more than I have time for. So if I wasn't doing marketing in the corporate, I'd probably be doing something,
Hmm.
in the volunteer community service, working for a nonprofit space, trying to make the world a better place.
I have a good friend that went from corporate marketing to nonprofit marketing, and he just said, "I felt that I needed to use my powers for good instead of evil."
Sums it up perfectly. Sums it up perfectly.
But I do believe in the nobility of marketing in that we give people the things that and the experiences that they both want and need, and there is nobility in that. So anyway, Tia, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. We're excited for the world to hear this conversation. So thank you so much for spending the time with me.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully, it was people enjoyed listening.
Absolutely.